الكريم أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والمطلقات يتربصن بأنفسهن ثلاثة قروء ولا يحل لهن أن يكتمن ما خلق الله في أرحامهن إن كن يؤمن بالله واليوم الآخر وبعولتهن أحق بردهن في ذلك إن أرادوا إصلاحا ولهن مثل الذي عليهن بالمعروف وللرجال عليهن درجة والله عزيز حكيم. Respectful honorable friends, in the verses that I've recited to you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes mention of a ruling with regards divorce. And in the next ruku, divorce is mentioned and discussed in more detail for a few verses. In this one verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes mention of a couple of rulings and also with it one very important principle. وَالْمُطَلَّقَاتُ يَتَرَبَّصْنَ بِأَنفُسِهِنَّ ثَلَاثَةَ قُرُوءٍ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and a divorcee يَتَرَبَّصْنَ بِأَنفُسِهِنَّ should keep herself ثَلَاثَةَ قُرُوءٍ in waiting for 3 periods. وَلَا يَحِلُّ لَهُنَّ أَن يَكْتُمْنَ مَا خَلَقَ اللَّهُ فِي أَرْحَامِهِنَّ, and it is not halal for her that she conceals that which Allah has created in her womb. إِن كُنَّ يُؤْمِنَّ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ, if she believes in Allah and the hereafter. وَبُعُولَتُهُنَّ أَحَقُّ بِرَدِّهِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ إِنْ أَرَادُوا إِصْلَاحًا, and her husband has the right of taking her back in that. إِنْ أَرَادُوا إِصْلَاحًا, if they intend peace. وَلَهُنَّ مِثْلُ الَّذِي عَلَيْهِنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ, and for them, meaning the women folk, is similar to that which has been granted, meaning in rights to the husbands, بِالْمَعْرُوفِ, in goodness. وَلِلرِّجَالِ عَلَيْهِنَّ دَرَجَةً, and for the men is superiority, virtue over them. وَاللَّهُ عَزِيزٌ حَكِيمٌ, and Allah is the mighty, the all-wise. In this verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions a few things. The first thing that He mentions is with regards to the waiting period of a woman who has been divorced. And that is ثَلَاثَةَ قُرُوء, 3 periods, 3 menstrual circles. When a female is divorced, then she has to sit in a waiting period. Now, depending on the type of divorce that's granted to her, either the husband has the right to take her back or he doesn't. The types of divorce will be mentioned in detail later on. However, in this verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes mention towards one type of talaq, which is called talaqur raj'i. This is wherein the husband gives the wife just one divorce, which is called talaqur raj'i, just one divorce. And this is the correct thing to do. Thereafter, once the divorce is given, the husband separates from the wife, and she has to observe a waiting period for ثَلَاثَةَ قُرُوء, which is 3 menstrual periods. Once this period has been passed and she completes this waiting time, then the husband if he wants to take the wife back in his nikah, then he has to remarry her. And if he wants to take her back within this period of time, all he has to do is say that he takes her back verbally, or they have to meet physically, by which then he takes her back. He makes raj'at, meaning that he takes her back to him. The waiting period, which is thalathat quru, 3 menstrual periods. So from the time that she is divorced, she will wait for these 3 periods to completely pass. There is, however, a difference of opinion between the fuqaha. That thalathat quru, does it mean 3 purity periods, or does it mean the period of time when she is on her periods itself? But unanimous opinion is thalathat quru, because Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam has used the word quru elsewhere also, which refers to the hayz, to the bleeding period. So she will wait for 3 full periods to go by. That's why you find that Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam has mentioned that a person, if he intends to divorce his wife, he should divorce her when she is in her clean period, and not when she is on her periods itself. The reason for this is because if she is already during those days where she is on her periods, and then if she is divorced, then her iddat, her waiting period, increases, because she has to now wait for the current period to come to an end, because that won't be counted, because it can't be 3.5 periods. Then she has to wait for the clean period to go by, and then it's once impure, clean, impure, clean, impure, and then when she becomes clean, that she is free. So it lengthens the process. Hence Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam mentions that it should be done in the clean period. And one of the reasons behind this also is that if he does divorce her in the clean period, if he wants to take her back also, there's more chance that he'll take her back then. Meaning he might meet with her physically, by which then the raj'at, he has taken her back in his nikah. Now the reason for this thalathat quru is, and why a female has to observe this waiting period is, now first of all, this ruling is for that female who has been in seclusion with the husband. Which means that if somebody has got married, a couple have got married, and the husband divorces the wife before they have even met each other, even if he means just for a short while they've sat in a room together in seclusion, and he divorces her before that, then there is no waiting period for her at all. But the moment they meet together, which is called khalwat sahiha, khalwat sahiha means wherein both have been together, even if it means for a short while, in total seclusion. If they've met with each other just for a short while, but there's been people around in a gathering, that won't be counted. But just the fact that they've been together on their own in a room for a short period of time, then that female has to observe the waiting period, the iddat. The reason behind this is because if there wasn't such thing as a waiting period, and if the husband and wife had met whilst they were together, and sexual intercourse took place, and if the wife did conceive during that period of time, and then the husband divorces her, and the next day she gets married to somebody else, then once she would conceive, it would be hard to define who the child belongs to. The new husband or the previous husband. Because obviously when she conceives, you don't know then and then that she's conceived. A few days has to go by, a few weeks go by, there's various signs, and then only later on does a person know for sure whether she's conceived or not. So then there will be great confusion, quarrels and fights with regards to who the father of the child is. So in order to make it easy, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded that she waits for 3 periods. And normally you'd find that beyond the 3 periods, she won't have conceived later on. If she conceives, she will conceive within these 3 periods. So at least by this you know for sure that when she becomes pure, she's ready, she's halal to get married to somebody else, you know for sure that she's not expecting a child from her previous husband. So in this way at least the lineage of a child is also preserved. This is the reason for the waiting period, and not that it's some form of oppression on the female. So وَالْمُطَلَّقَاتُ يَتَرَبَّصْنَ بِأَنفُسِهِنَّ ثَلَاثَةَ قُرُوءٍ, she will wait for 3 periods to go by. وَلَا يَحِلُّ لَهُنَّ أَن يَكْتُمْنَ مَا خَلَقَ اللَّهُ فِي رَحَامِهِنَّ إِن كُنَّ يُؤْمِنَّ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and it is not permissible for, it is not halal for her to conceal that which Allah has created in her womb. Meaning that while she is serving this period, that if she knows that she has conceived, she has to mention it and she has to be honest with it. Because if now she does become pregnant, then her iddat is increased till she gives birth to the child. So her period now is increased from 3 periods to 8, 9 months, whatever period it takes for her to conceive, to give birth, and then whatever waiting period after that, which is still have to be observed. Only after that does she become halal to remarry. So obviously the period of time is going to increase. So you might have those people who, because they don't want to wait so long, might be dishonest and say no, she's not expecting anything, and they might be dishonest. Or even if it isn't a case of her conceiving, and some of them, because with regards to her period, nobody else can define, nobody else knows the signs, they don't put flags or something like that. Only the female herself will know what period she's going through. She might be in her purity, but she says she's in impurity. She might be in her impurity and she says she's completed it. So only a female herself will know exactly whether she has conceived or not, and whether she is on a purity period or whether she is on her menstrual period. In kunna yuminna billahi wal yawmil akhir, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, if she has iman on Allah in the hereafter, I mean that a female who has iman with Allah in the hereafter, it is not halal for her, meaning that she will always be honest. And a female who is dishonest, she is proving that although she has iman, but she doesn't have true iman on Allah and the hereafter. Because the menfolk and any other person won't know exactly what's happening internally with her. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala obviously knows. And when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows, then obviously Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not going to send down a judge, an angel in this world who will judge for the woman or the male at the time and say that she's lying or whatever. But it will be when? Wal yawmil akhir, in the hereafter. In the hereafter, whatever person does, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will prove it, and each one will see the deeds that he has done. So obviously if a person has iman in Allah, then he'll stay away from hiding anything in this world, because he knows or she knows that Allah is all seeing. If a person has iman on the hereafter, that person will also know that if it is gone by, or if it is hidden and concealed in this world, then in the hereafter for sure every matter is going to be brought up in the open. وَبُؤُولَتُهُنَّ أَحَقُّ بِرَدِّهِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ إِنْ أَرَادُوا إِصْلَاحًا. وَبُؤُولَتُهُنَّ, and the husbands, أَحَقُّ بِرَدِّهِنَّ, has the rights to take her back, فِي ذَلِكَ, in that, meaning in the period, in the waiting period, in the iddat. إِنْ أَرَادُوا إِصْلَاحًا, if they intend peace. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala refers to this talaq raj'i, which is just one talaq at a moment. More than that will come later on. And that is, he says that if a male divorces, he gives the wife one divorce, then within the waiting period, that's why he says أَحَقُّ بِرَدِّهِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ, in that, meaning in the waiting period, he has the rights of taking her back. But this rights is in aradu islaha. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes it clear that if both of them agree peace and harmony, then only should he take her back. Not that now he takes her back because he feels, well, instead of her becoming halal and getting married to somebody else, let me rather keep her in the house and she can be there, the slave or servant in the house. Or he shouldn't just keep her because he wants to now oppress her. But he should only take her back in his nikah if they know for sure there's going to be sulah between them. Now something that's very, very important, I won't go into the details of what is talaq and why Allah has ordained such thing and has given us the possibility of talaq and nikah, and that we leave that for the next session, inshallah. But one thing that's very, very important, and for quite a while now, I've even been intending to write something specifically on this topic, I've even made the intention and never been able to do it. A few times. And there's a great misconception amongst the people today, that when they divorce their wife, they think that they have to give all 3 divorces at one time. So what they do is, whether it's in anger or whether it's now planned that now they're going to separate, etc., they just fire all 3 rounds. And then what happens is, now they regret, and then they wish that now we can reconcile, we can get together, etc. But now it's too late. Because what they don't realize is, when a person has a firearm which has only 3 rounds in it, all it is just a twitch of a muscle, and that's it, the round is fired. When the round is fired, then nobody can quickly reverse it, or hold it, or quickly catch it before it reaches its target. The moment the words are fired from the barrel, from the tongue, then divorce is active. Divorce falls. If a person divorces his wife and gives the full 3 divorces, then the wife is not halal for him at all. Once the waiting period is observed, he can't take her back in that period. And after the waiting period is complete, the only way he can take her back is via halala, which means wherein now she has to marry somebody else. And then they have to physically meet with each other. And then if circumstantially, if new husband divorces the wife, or if she becomes a widow, and now she completes her waiting period again, then only now can the first husband remarry his wife. So it's a very long process. And a lot of times, when obviously the husband knows that this is what she's going to have to go through before he can remarry her, then even a desire to remarry her fades away now. Because he doesn't want her to have to go through the halala and whatever else she has to go through for them to become halal for each other. Now you have many cases wherein the husband issues the 3 divorces, and now he regrets what he has done, and then he goes about looking, searching, shopping for the appropriate fatwa that he wants. So then he goes to one Darul Ifta, to the other Darul Ifta, and he doesn't find what he wants. He doesn't find the item that he wants. But he continues, and it so happens somewhere along the line he will find a second-hand shop, no name brand shop somewhere, no frill somewhere, where that the person will then from somewhere or the other take out some excuse or some reason wherein he'll make the marriage halal for them, and they live together. That's one method that they adopt. Or the other method that they adopt is they say, well, stuff all the Islamic fatwas and all that, we love each other, nobody can separate us, we'll still live together. And then what happens is the entire lives they live together, they live in zina, they live in haram. And there are many cases wherein you'll find when they first come to you, they mention one case, and the more and more desperate they become, the situation, the condition keeps on changing. Wherein now all of a sudden they remember something else, or which they forgot before, or they remember this or that, and the case keeps on changing. And they'll keep on phoning to say, but by the way, I don't know if this makes any difference in it or not, but this is what happened, or I remember this, or I remember that, etc. Or from the 2 parties, one may then start lying also, wherein he might say, well, he doesn't remember what happened. Or she says she doesn't remember exactly what happened. So in this method what happens is, either they are separated properly, or they live together haram. Whereas Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it so easy for us, wherein He tells us that if you want to separate, then do not issue all 3 divorces collectively. And it is something which was greatly disliked by Nabi Karim sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and as it is divorce itself is disliked. But there are circumstances wherein that's the only route, and there's wisdom in the two separating. Whereas Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam himself has mentioned that in the case wherein both now know for sure that they can't live together if they have to separate, then also the husband, the best way of divorcing her is that he should divorce her in the clean period. He should give her one divorce, and then once she's passed, in the next period at least divorce her then, and divorce her gradually in this way. So at least he has time to think what he wants to do. Because once you've fired all 3 rounds, there's no time now. Now you can't start thinking and planning what you want to do. So unfortunately many people think that in order to divorce the wife, they have to issue all 3. If somebody comes for advice with regards to divorce, and when you mention to them, look, the best thing for you to do is just issue 1 divorce to the wife, we find they're not pleased with this advice at all. They think that after giving her 1 divorce, they're still bound to each other. They think, no, that's totally break it off, totally separate from her. This is what they think. Many times people come for advice, which is good, at least they come for advice, because you'll have the other people who come to advice for advice afterwards. They've divorced the wives and then they phone for advice. So what's the point? When you're there angry and you're fighting, and then you should phone then and say, wait a minute, let me phone Mufti Saheb and find out, should I divorce you or not? They won't phone then, but after they've done it, then they phone. What's the point now phoning? And they just know just to find out. They've given 3 talaqs openly clear, 3 divorce, but they still want to phone just to make sure. For other matters, they won't phone beforehand to make sure that if I give full 3 talaqs, what the circumstances, what the consequences will be. They won't phone then, but afterwards they'll phone. So they're not satisfied when you tell them to just divorce the wife once. Just recently a person, his case was that he had divorced his wife, and then after the period has passed, and that now he decided to marry somebody else. So the family, the parents of the girl that who now he's married to, who he went to propose, they asked him to take an oath that have you divorced your wife 3 times or not, your ex-wife. Whereas this poor chap, he had divorced her only once. He had divorced her only once because he was taking the right advice, and he thought maybe in future the road is still open, they can always get together. But now the other family members, they were saying that we will only allow our daughter to marry you on condition that you have divorced your wife 3 times. You've given her the full 3 divorce. So he was pressurized, and he had to take an oath. So obviously now if he takes an oath that yes, I have divorced her full 3 times, then that is done now. Now he's done what he hadn't done, now he has done it. So this poor chap now obviously was concerned, because now he feels that now he's married to this girl anyway, she doesn't mind him getting married again to the first wife. And this is what he was intending to do. So but now unfortunately he asked, can I do it or not? He can't. But the case here was the other family members who were insisting that he divorces her 3 times. So they think that if the divorce isn't a full 3 divorce, there's still some form of attachment. But what they don't realize is that the best thing is that a person should give his wife just 1 divorce. Once the wife is given the 1 divorce, she will sit in her waiting period. In that waiting period, which is still 3 months or so, it takes a while, if they both intend to get together, now they miss each other, and then they realize that they can make things work out, all they have to do is, the husband just has to say, I take you back in my nikah, and they're together again. Nobody even needs to know that he divorced her and this is happening. Just between them, they can reconcile and get together again. Although he still has only 2 left. Doesn't mean now he takes her back, he's still got all 3 rounds. He's only got 2 rounds left. But at least he's still got the 2 rounds. Still got 2 lives left. If, however, within that waiting period, he doesn't take the wife back, and her waiting period ends. Now the moment her waiting period ends, she is now halal and free. She can go and get married to whoever she wants to after that. She doesn't have to wait for him to divorce her totally to get married. Once her waiting period is over, they are no longer husband and wife. The husband himself, when he divorces the wife, he can get married to somebody else the next moment. But the wife, she has to sit in the waiting period. So the moment the waiting period has come to an end, she is free, they're both now haram for each other, they both go their separate ways. So if she gets another proposal, she doesn't have to wait for the husband to totally divorce her another 2 times before she can accept it and get married whoever she wants. But at least in this method, if she doesn't get married to anybody else, and after a while, another few months goes by, and they start missing each other, and now they realize that it was a mistake and they can make things work out, then all they need to do is renew the nikah. There's no halal or anything like that to be done. They just need to go get the nikah done again, and they're halal for each other again. And he still has the 2 rounds left. And then again, obviously, if things don't work out again, then if he gives the talaq again just the 1, then the same procedure continues until he's utilized all 3. In this method, at least there is chance for a person to get together very easily. This is a type of divorce Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala indicates to, and this is a type of divorce that a person should give when he intends to divorce his wife. But for some reason now people think that if he only gives her 1 divorce and after her iddat she's still attached to him. But what they don't realize is the moment the iddat comes to an end, the waiting period comes to an end, she's no longer attached to the husband at all. The only difference is that it's easier for them to get together again. So this is something very, very important for us to adhere to and also to teach people. So if you know somebody who is going through a divorce and they're going to intend to divorce, then this is the method that should be advised on, to divorce giving only 1 talaq. When the 1 divorce is given, it is called talaq raji'i, which means that he has the chance to make the raj'at to take her back. And once after the iddat is complete, then is regarded to be talaq ba'in. Talaq ba'in is wherein they're now separated from each other, they're haram for each other, but they can just, all they need to do now is remarry. In talaq raji'i, all he has to do is take her back. In talaq ba'in, all he has to do is do re-nikah. But the moment he gives her all 3 talaqs, whether it's together, or if it's after taking her back, and then the second time he gave her divorce, and then third time also he divorced her, then after that she becomes talaqul mughallaza. Once it's talaqul mughallaza, that it means now they're haram for each other. The only way they can get together again is via halal. So this is where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَبُؤُولَتُهُنَّ أَحَقُّ بِرَدِّهِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ إِنْ أَرَادُوا إِصْلَاحًا. That the husbands, they have the rights to take her back in the waiting period. In aradu islaha. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us so much advice in here, and that is if you intend islah, if you intend there to be peace and harmony. Which means that if you know for sure that the best thing and the only way for peace is divorce, because at times the best thing is divorce, and at times the worst thing is divorce. There will be times wherein divorce takes place and both are upset with regards to it, and this normally happens when the husband does not control his anger. When now he becomes very angry with the wife, he doesn't want to divorce her, they don't have any such problems by which they need to be separated. But just because of anger, out of anger, he fires and he gives his wife the divorce. And then what happens is, obviously now they both regret it. They have to suffer, the children have to suffer, and the whole family members, they all have to suffer because of the husband not controlling his anger. And when he gives divorce in such a manner that he didn't intend to divorce, he didn't have the intention to divorce, but now they're forced that they have to live separately. And the other cases where things do not work out at all, there then obviously peace for them is to separate. Because there are times that by them being together, there's more harm in them being together. There's plates and weapons and all sorts of things flying across the room at each other. Children are crying in one corner, they're seeing the parents fighting and nagging the whole time. There's no peace at all. Neither does a husband have any peace in the home, neither does a wife have any peace in the home. So for them, peace is that nicely, in a nice method, in the Islamic way, they separate with each other. And the Islamic way of divorce is the most pristine and the most beautiful forms of divorce, which will be mentioned later on. And as we've said, Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam has told us that divorce in a nice manner, wherein in her clean period, so that at least her iddat is not lengthened. In her clean period, give her divorce. While she is still in her waiting period, it is the duty of the husband that he should maintain and provide for her while she is still in the iddat. Once she has completed the iddat, she is free now. It is no longer the responsibility of the husband to look after her. She will now have her father, her brother, or a son if she has children to look after her. If not, she still can get married to somebody else, and her new husband can now look after her. In it, and it is fair that while she is still in her waiting period, obviously she has to remain in the home. So who's going to provide for her? She can't get married to somebody else, so he'll provide for her. So during that period of time, it is a duty, it is wajib upon the husband that he should look after her and provide for her. Once the waiting period is over, she goes to her parents' home. Once she's there, the duty of the parents, that father will look after her. And if she wants to, she remarries, then the husband looks after her. If there is nobody at all to look after her, then within the confines of the hijab, she can go and look for a living and support herself once her iddat is over. It will be unfair that once her iddat is over, when she now has the right of others to look after her, or when she can now look after herself, that the husband should still maintain and still look after her. This is hardship upon the husband, and this is oppression upon the husband, that now they have divorced, she's haram for him, he has no rights over her anymore, neither should she have any rights upon him, and then too he has to maintain her. This is oppression on the husband, this is incorrect. Yes, if there are children involved, then obviously the children are still the rights of the husband, so it makes sense that the husband then look after and he maintains the children. However, something that's very, very important is that the Shari ruling with regards maintaining the children is that whilst the children are still under the age of puberty, the mother looks after the children. During that period of time, the husband, the father, needs to maintain the children. Once they reach the age of puberty, they should be given over to the husband, to the father to look after. Or they will be given an option, a choice. If after the age of puberty, the mother still keeps the children, then it is no longer wajib upon the father to maintain the children. Although if he does do so, this is something out of good compassion towards them, and obviously the father should still look after his children. But once they reach the age of puberty, and if the mother still decides that she's not going to hand him over to the father, then it's no longer wajib upon the father to maintain them. Whereas the law of the country will say until they are 18, the father still has to maintain them, and the wife will go to court to try and suck out as much, the last penny she can, and she'll complain that he doesn't give maintenance to the children. Whereas in reality, the moment they become baligh, it is not halal, it's not permissible for the wife to take the maintenance which the law commands the husband to pay. Because Islamically it's not wajib upon him anymore. If she decides that once they mature that she's still going to keep them, it's now her responsibility now that she maintains them. And the father, whatever good he does from his side, that he's doing out of ihsan, is not a wajib, compulsory obligation upon him. So the court system of divorce and maintenance is something that is against the Islamic system and the natural way of life, where now things go to court, and then what happens is everything is distributed half, 50-50, or so many. Most cases the divorced wife, she's in a better condition and she gets more than the husband. So in this country, it's expensive to marry and it's expensive to divorce. And there will be those people who have married, but because of the expenses, they rather not divorce. They stay together because they know of the consequences of divorcing. If things go to court, then look how much, the amount of people have to suffer from it. Whereas Islam has made it so easily. And not only that, but Nabi Karim mentions that when the husband divorces the wife, he should even give her a few pieces of clothing. He should give her a few gifts, so that at least they separate in a nice manner. They got together in a nice love and affection manner. Now when they separate also, there shouldn't be any hard feelings between the two. The families and them shouldn't be quarreling, fighting forever. Now they're arch enemies. But Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam mentions that give her one or two pieces of clothing, give her a gift, give her something, some money, etc., and depart and separate in a nice method. In this, the wife is happy that she's not living in oppression, she's free to marry again, and the husband is also doesn't have any extra burden upon him. In this manner, in such a nice manner, divorce takes place. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَهُنَّ مِثْلُ الَّذِي عَلَيْهِنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. Now one thing that he mentioned first is that for them is also like the husband's right bil ma'ruf, in an equal manner. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that the wives, they also have a rights upon the husband, just the way the husband has rights on the wife. This is something also Muslim husbands deliberately become unaware of, wherein they'll demand all their rights A to Z. They'll tell their wives and give them books and everything of all the hukuk, all the rights. That don't you know Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam has mentioned that if sajda was permissible for anybody, it was for me. If I call you wherever and whenever I want, you have to be there. If I tell you to do this, you have to do it. If I become displeased with you, then the whole night the angels curse you. So they memorize all these ahadiths and they know all these rights. They'll come to the Imam and say, give me a whole list of what are my rights? What are my rights? But they won't ask at the same time, can you educate me, can you mention to me, advise me with regards, what are the rights of my wife? Because obviously she has some rights that the husband has to see to. So the menfolk are getting negligent with this. And this is because of the mentality of the past. One is prior to Islam, we know that the women folk had no rights whatsoever. They were just regarded to be a commodity, a piece of merchandise. People would utilize her, inherit her, dispose of her, as you would do with any other form of merchandise. She had no rights whatsoever. She would have no rights to consult the husband in any matter. They wouldn't consult with her anyway. They would never ask her opinion, what is your opinion in it? Some may say that's matter. So there was nothing like that at all. To that extent, that even in her own goods, if she had any wealth of her own, she would have no rights at all to spend from her own wealth. If she wanted to utilize it for herself or for somebody else, she would have to seek permission from the husband, that from her own wealth, that can I utilize my wealth and buy something for myself or whatever. But the husband, if he wants to, he would do whatever he wants with her wealth. So there's no regards whatsoever with regards to the rights of the women folk. If the husband dies, then the other family members, the other male members would just inherit her as well. Or there are those who go to those extremes with regard that now there's no status for her at all, no position for her. So she would also be burned alive, cremated with the husband. So women folk had no say at all in society. They had no position at all in society. They wouldn't inherit at all. There was no rights whatsoever. This was prior to Islam. And this wasn't only in the Arab states, but even in Europe and in the Western countries also we find that it's only till the late century or so, or even less than that, that they have been recognized. To that extent, that according to the French, there was a time when they regarded the women to be inferior than the blood of swine also. That a swine had more statuses than a female. And there was a time wherein Europeans regarded them to have no rights whatsoever, that they had no statuses at all, no nothing at all. It's only afterwards, recently, that they started accepting that, okay, fair enough, they are also humans as we are. And now it's become to such an extreme that now they have more rights than the male. So from one extreme to one extreme. Either nothing at all, that even animals would have more rights than them, They would appreciate and give more rights to the animals than the women folk. Or now he's gone to that extreme wherein whatever the wife says, whatever the women says, and you find the women folk dictate so many things, isn't it? So from one extreme to the other extreme. Whereas Islam has brought the middle path in it. Islam gave them the rights as a wife, as a daughter, as a sister, as a mother. They all have been given the various rights. She will inherit just as the males inherit. Whatever wealth she has belongs to her, which is very, very important, which means that after marriage, the husband has no right to utilize the wealth of the wife without her permission. So he can just now, for his direct debits and not just give her account details and keep her bank card with him. Whenever he wants to, he takes out and withdraws whatever he wants and utilizes it for himself. He can't do that at all unless without the permission of the wife. If the wife gives permission, then it's fine. But in the same way, the wife can't also misuse the money of the husband. And one very important masla that is, which a lot of women folk are unaware of. And that is, if the husband leaves the money with the wife, this money is there for shopping purposes. So he leaves 20, 30, 40, 50 pounds there in the home. That look, this is there for shopping, for household use. It is not permissible for the wife to take that money, spend, go do her shopping, and then put the odd few coins or the odd change into her own purse. Many women folk do this. That they go shopping, whatever few £1 or 20p even, or 1p, 2p, they'll just put it into their own money, into their own, or they might just utilize it for their own personal use. Not the household good, for their own personal use, or whether they might find change and they might buy something for other family members, her family members. And the thing that is fine, the husband has given it to her, whereas this is not permissible. Because that money, that change, even if it's just 20p, 19 pence, or 1 pence, that still belongs to the husband. So she hasn't got the right to put it into her, mix it with her wealth, or utilize it for her own self. Yes, if the husband has given her permission, then look, this is the money and you've got permission, you can utilize it how you want, you can do what you want with it, you can keep the change. So the husband tells the wife, okay, keep the change, keep the penny change. Then it's fine. Even if it's just a penny, it is not permissible for it to be mixed. This is very, very important, because you find in these things the women folk are very negligent in it. And the husbands, the men folk also, they just give all the affairs, the checkbooks and everything to the wives, the money to the wife, the purse to the wife, but they don't specify things which is very, very important. Lest we find that Hakimul Matari Shaykh Ashraf Itayi Rahimullah, his situation was that whatever belonged to him, his own possessions, he would label it. And whatever belonged to the wife, he would make that open, that this belongs to you, this is yours. Why? Because it says that after I die, whatever belonged to me needs to be now distributed amongst the heirs. So it's not permissible for you to take it all without the others getting it. And if you die, then it's not permissible for me to inherit everything from you, it's ours. That's where you find that joint accounts is contrary to the teaching of Islam. So you find husband and wives open a joint account. The checkbook also says Mr. and Mrs. whatever. Whatever is her income, whatever money she has, that goes into it also, and whatever he has goes into it also. Now if any of the two passes away, how do you distribute the wealth? How do you know whose is what? And then what happens is, if the husband passes away, what belongs to the wife will now be distributed amongst the other heirs, she'll lose out on what belonged to her, or vice versa. So joint accounts are contrary to the Islamic teachings. And then when divorce takes place also, and then you have a lot of problems. In the same way with the house also, it should be bought on one person's name, and it does have one owner, not both in the name of both the husband and wife. When it is in the name of both the husband and wife, and then obviously you divorce the wife, if she goes to say, well, the house is mine, my name's also on it, either you give me 50-50 or it's my name, I'll fight for it. Whose fault is it then? It's your fault. If you paid for it with your own money, it should be in your name. And yes, if the wife paid for it with her money, and a lot of times that does happen, when she gives the majority of the money, then it has to mention that, look, X percentage of the house belongs to her, X percentage belongs to me, or the whole house belongs to her and not to me. Now that now the husband divorces her, he lives in her house and she's kicked out. So these things are contrary to the Islamic teachings. The Hazrat Hakim al-Thawi rahimahullah, he would make specifically separate everything. And if somebody came and gave them something, somebody would give a gift, he would ask, who is it for? He would ask, who is it for? Is it for me, or is it for the wife? Or is it for both? If they would say it's for both of you, then he would define, okay, this is joint property. So obviously if I pass away, it belongs to you, you pass away, it belongs to me. So you specify everything, what belongs to who. Now obviously today's time somebody comes and gives you a gift and you ask them, who is it for? They get offended. But it's right, isn't it? Ask, are you giving it to me, or is it for the wife? Is this for the house? Who is it for? What is it for? This is very, very important. And at the same time, he would spend a lot of time in the Khanka of Tanabon also. So there also, whatever possession was his, he would label everything, so he would know that that's his personal belonging, and the rest would be the property of the Khanka of the madrasa. These are very beautiful examples for us. And then obviously you don't have messy divorces. When you have messy divorces, there's no scope for it at all. Everything is straightforward. This is yours, you bring your van and you take your stuff, this is mine, I'll keep it. In this way, there's no complaints whatsoever afterwards, and nobody suffers at all from such time. So these type of things are very, very important. So the husband, without the permission of the wife, cannot utilize her wealth, and the wife cannot utilize the wealth of the husband without asking. So as I was mentioning, Islam gave women folk various rights. They had ownership over things, which means that the wife, if her father or brother, somebody passes away and she inherits something from them, that's now her property, not the husband's property. The husband, for some reason, he just thinks that whatever belongs to you belongs to me, what belongs to me belongs to me. What's mine is mine, but what yours is mine, isn't it? He doesn't have any divine given rights that the wife's possession belongs to him. She inherits, that's hers. If her brother or father gives her something, that's hers. She doesn't now come and give it to the husband, that belongs to her. And it is good for her to have something. That's why Hakim al-Matani rahimahullah, amongst some of the beautiful advice he gives is, he says that besides the wajib maintenance that the husband has to see to the wife, because part of their rights, which Nabi Karim has mentioned, because the Sahaba asked, what are the rights of the wife? Nabi Karim said that when you eat, you feed them. When you clothe yourself, you also buy clothes for them. And that you do not hit them, beat them on the face, you do not curse them, and you do not separate from them but in the house. Which means that if there's a quarrel or something, if you have to separate from them, separate in the house itself. Go sleep in another room, so that at least they know that the husband is displeased. Not that you have a quarrel or something, you kick her out, or you leave the house and you go off to another friend, or you go somewhere else. Nabi Karim says, remain together, separate, but in the same house. If you have to beat her for some valid reason, not on the face. Nabi Karim also mentions that do not curse her. And he says their rights is that when you eat, feed them. Not that you go out with your friends and you have a good takeaway, a good time with your mates, and them good food, and she's there having whatever beans and whatever there is there in the house. Or if she cooks something that you don't appreciate and she has to finish it off and you go out, you just say, I'm just going to see a friend quickly, and this, that, and you there in the takeaway, and you having your nice burgers and things like that. It shouldn't be that now, every now and then you buy new trainers, new shoes, new clothing, and then she's still got the same torn, tatty clothes, torn shoes, and these things you don't buy for her. But it should be a case, and obviously, now it doesn't mean every time you buy, you have to buy for her, because there's times when she's got enough. You need something, she doesn't need something, she needs something, you don't. So the best thing is that when she needs something, when she does need something, buy it for her. And when you need something, buy it for you. And obviously when she doesn't need anything, then it's a matter of explaining to her nicely, not beating her up and smacking it into her, but explain to her nicely that at this moment you've got enough in the wardrobe. When those become torn and tattered, and when you've done with those, then obviously yes, I'll buy you the best that you want. So within the means, that's what Allah Ta'ala says, bil ma'roof. Bil ma'roof here means according to a person's means, according to the customs, correctly, in a nice, correct manner. They also have rights just the way that the husband has rights over them. So this is very, very important. The husbands, the male folk should realize that just the way they have rights, the women folk also have various rights that they should see to. See that Ibn Abbas mentions something very beautiful, wherein he says that I would desire to be appealing, to look good to my wife, just the way I would desire her to be good looking for me. Such beautiful advice. Wherein here also we find that the husband wants the wife, she has to be the supermodel all the time. He can be dressed however he wants to. He can be disheveled, he can be overweight, he can be however he wants. But she has to be the supermodel. She has to always dress up, she has to always be good looking, etc. And he wants her good looking for him all the time. But then he doesn't think about himself. That obviously I want my wife to be clean. Then if I go to her also, I must also see that I'm also clean. I'm not sweating underarm, I'm also with nice smelling, I'm also appealing to her. After all, she also has a right. So this is something that also has rights. And something that Shaykh Thanwi Rahimullah mentions, it's a pity the women folk aren't here to listen, but inshallah make dua if things materialize, and as soon as we have a receiver system inshallah very soon, then they'll also be able to hear these type of things. As Hazrat Thanwi Rahimullah mentions, that today is the opposite, wherein the women folk, they dress for everybody but the husband. And he gives the example that when they're in the homes, they're like mamas, meaning workers in the home. They dress up like that in the home. And then when there's a wedding, or they're going to the family, or they're going out, then they dress up so nicely. So it says, for the person whom she's supposed to dress up, the one who maintains her, the one who buys everything for her, that poor chap doesn't get to see her dressed up for him. But everybody else gets to see her dressed up. So when she goes out to other people, to meet other people, she dresses up to see them. And when she's in the home, she's in a torn, tattered clothes like a worker in the house. So that shouldn't be the case either. But rather it's a case wherein in the home, she dresses in the best way for her maharim and her husband to see. And when she goes out, she covers herself, she's in the hijab. So the outside people, they don't need to see her beauty, they don't need to see how she's dressed up for, because the one who maintains her, the one who has to see her, at least he gets to see her in her beauty. In this way, obviously, there's a lot of love and affection between them. The husband will always appreciate the wife because he's seeing her so beautiful, and if she's dressed up in such a manner, then obviously he's going to look elsewhere. And in the same way, if the husband doesn't maintain himself and look after himself, then the women folk, they're also going to be inclined elsewhere. So these things are also part of the rights of the women folk. So this is very, very important. They study the rights of their rights, and the poor wives, they know that the husband is not seeing to their rights, but they can't be like the husband. The husband can go and shove the book into her face and read this book. But the wives, they don't have the courage to tell the husband, okay, look my beloved husband, please read this book chapter also. Because the husband, he'll read the whole book, he'll miss out that chapter, and he'll show her the other chapter, or he'll tear those chapters out. Whatever happens, she shouldn't be seeing those chapters, but she should be seeing what he wants her to see. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala intercedes and says, وَلَهُنَّ مِثْلُ الَّذِي عَلَيْهِنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. They also have rights in goodness and righteousness just the way the men folk have. And then further Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, but in all this, وَلِلْرِجَالِ عَلَيْهِنَّ دَرَجَةً, for the men there is greater status upon the women. This is very, very important. Where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that look, before they had no rights whatsoever, Islam came and gave her her rights. But in that, from the two, men folk still have greater rights over the women folk. This isn't out of oppression, but this is because naturally the husband has more responsibilities than the wife. the men folk have more responsibilities over the women folk, so the one who has more responsibilities, his statuses are going to be more than others. You have an institute, you have the teacher, you have the principal. The teacher has less responsibilities over the principal has more responsibilities, so due to which he has more responsibilities, so because he has more responsibilities, his statuses are more than the teacher. Which actually means if a person wants a high position, then he should be willing to take the responsibility as well. Today people just want the position, but they don't want the responsibilities. You want to become the Prime Minister, but you don't want to take the responsibility of the entire population of the country. You want to become this minister and that minister, but you don't want to take any form of responsibilities. You want to become the Amir or the leader, but you don't want to take any responsibilities. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because He has given the men folk more responsibilities, He's given them more statuses over the women. But these statuses are just natural. Because we find if the women folk were given more responsibilities, or if they had more rights over the men folk, then there would be chaos and havoc in society, which we are seeing rampant today. Islam draws the beautiful line in between. And that is, Islam has given them the rights, but Islam has also given men folk rights. Because obviously you have to have a leader and those who are now under the leadership. If the husband and the wife both say, I am the Amir, the house itself won't run at all. If both want to be the boss, then nothing's going to happen at all. One has to be the leader, there has to be one who has more rights, superiority over the other. For the nizam, the system of this world to run, you have to have those who are leaders, you have to have those who remain within that job which is appropriate for them. The women folk, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hasn't created them unemployed. They are all employed. They are employed to their natural task, and that is looking after the affairs of the home and the nurturing of the children. The method in which the mothers feed the child, the fathers cannot feed the child in the same manner. The manner in which the mothers look after the child, the father cannot do so. The mother will know that the child is ill, the father may not just recognize it immediately. The mother will know what the child needs, what the child is trying to say, even when it's in infancy and just making gugagagi things, sounds and that. The father won't have a clue, but the mother knows that he's hungry, something's wrong with the child. That's their job, that's what they're employed to do. The wives will know exactly where the dishes should be put, how they should be washed, how they should be utilized. The husband, he'll be told, no, not this utensil, get that utensil. No, you can't fry an egg in a saucepan, you need a frying pan. No, you don't take the jug and put it on the electric jug and you don't put it onto the stove, you plug it in. These things naturally are things that the women folk have been naturally created towards. So they have been employed, and this is the task that they have naturally been employed in. And they are the bosses in that department. And the men folk, they have been naturally created for them to leave the home, go outside in the hectic life, in a difficult society where he goes and he strives and he toils. Why? Because it's hard outside. So men folk have been given more strength and a more strong figure, body, strength. So he toils, and the women folk, they don't need to be bodybuilders to just look after, to change the nappy of a child. They don't need so much strength and so much physical strength to be able to look after the affairs of the home. But the men folk, they need this form of strength to be in the difficult world that is outside. Islam has given women folk such a beautiful right that Islam has taken from them the burden, the financial burden has been taken off their shoulders and placed it on the male folk. That as an individual, as a female, she should not worry with regard a financial situation. While she is still a daughter, the father has to maintain her. He should go out and work and look after her. Not that now she leaves school and that the father tells the daughter, look, now you can earn a living yourself, you go to work, you bring some money in, you pay rent, you save money from now for your marriage. And this is what people are doing. You'll find cases wherein the father sits at home and he tells the girl that you do everything in the house and you bring the money in, and he eats the money of the daughter where she goes out haram and she has to go and earn a living. Islam says the father looks after her. Once she becomes married, then it's the responsibility of the husband. The husband tells her that you are now so beautiful and such a nice soft body, and that you keep that for me, you look after yourself, you don't go out there and overwork and that. So you're no responsibility for you, you just stay in the home, look after nobody who shouldn't come in the house, doesn't come into the house. If I left some money, that the money should be looked after. If you have children, that they are nurtured, they're looked after in the house. You look after all these things in the surrounding security of the home, and I'll be the one who'll wear the pants, and I'll be the one who'll wear the overalls, and I'll be the one who'll take the car keys, and I'll go in the car, I'll the one who'll drive to work, and I'm the one who'll work in the factories or behind the office, behind the desk. I'll do all these things. I'll toil and I'll strive. I'll have late nights and I'll have a hectic lifestyle. And I'll come home and I will put the bread on the table. And all you have to do is now transform that into nice meals. I'll bring the food and put it there. You now have to fill my stomach. In this way, her rights are preserved, and the husband will always be pleased, because he does his duty, she does her duty. She doesn't have to worry about where will the next meal come from. She won't have any of this to worry about, and neither does the husband have to worry about where will the meal in the stomach come. When this nizam is in proportion, everybody is happy. But today it's the opposite. The wife will say, look, I've got my rights, I'm free to do what I want, you sit at home, you babysit, you change the nappies, you look after children, you make my tea, I'm going out. This is what happens. She comes home and she tells her husband, where's my tea? Where's my food? Why didn't you look after the children? Why didn't you do this? Why did you not do that? Or what happens is both get so arrogant that no, that's it, we're both going out. So somebody or nobody looks after the children. So children grow up their own ways without their parents knowing how they're growing up. Husband and wife comes home, the husband comes home very tired, fatigued, and when he comes home he finds a big note there on the microwave. There's your food's in the microwave, make it hot. Oh, there's something in the freezer, take it out. He's so hungry, starving there, now he has to take it out, wait for it to defrost. By the time it defrosts, never mind eating it, his hunger is also gone. And then when the wife comes home, obviously he's not going to be nice and loving towards the wife, is he? Naturally, he's going to be angry, he's going to be upset, there's going to be a lot of friction there. There's going to be frustration. And then when the wife comes, she's had a difficult day at work. She'll see to her stomach. But now when they together, now the husband and wife, when they should be together with each other, the husband may have some desires of his own that needs fulfilling. She's now stressed out, she's too tired, she's got another early morning the next day. Not tonight, that's it, I'm going to bed. So she's had her meals and she's gone to bed. And the poor husband, he's left with the dishes, and there's nothing else he can do. So that nizam, the system of the world, will never work in this manner. There has to be a hakim and a mahkum, one who orders and one who has to obey. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, although the women folk have been granted the rights, so many rights that Islam has given her, but at the end of the day, وَلِلْرِجَالِ عَلَيْهِنَّ دَرَجَةً, the men folk still have superiority over them. Their rights are much greater than the women folk. But this right, dear friends, is only because of the responsibility that they have greater responsibility over the women folk. When men realize their responsibility, and when the women folk see to their responsibility, you will find the society will be rosy. There won't be any problems at all in society, but there's so much havoc today because they've forgone their rights. And the amazing thing is, which is something which we must ponder about, that whenever you listen to various talk shows and matters with regards home life, domestic life, you'll always hear people complaining that in order to look after the children, both have to go to work. And there's always an issue that, well, if you want a third or a fourth child, we can't afford a third or fourth child. Because obviously both have to go to work, and then we need to also pay for a nanny or somebody to look after the children. So they say we can't have more children because we can't afford to have more children. Recently there was I just heard something where one person mentioned, and what she said was right. She said that if you've got space in your house and in your heart, have as many children as you want. But there are others who objected to this. That no, it doesn't just work that way. You have to have the money, you have to have the amount of money coming in also to have that amount of children. So you find for the non-Muslims, they have a lot of planning to do when it comes to having children. They have to go get an accountant. So before they have children, they have to see the accounts. They have to work out their accounts. But alhamdulillah, Muslims you find, you go to Muslim families, and there's 8, 10, 9, how many children? There's so many children in our Muslim homes, and the parents there didn't do any planning whatsoever. And each child is being fed, and each child is being clothed. None of them goes without any food. None of them goes without any clothing. They have everything that they want, and at the same time, the husband doesn't even go out to work. So never mind, one of the two going to work, here he doesn't go to work, and still they are affording to have so many children, which shows the risk is from Allah. So this is how the non-Muslims see it. And you find for this reason it's so difficult for them to have children. Even if they want to, they can't because of this pressure that they have. Whereas a Muslim, the male, he doesn't think of anything at all, he just thinks about himself. Although in Islam also there's such thing as everything should be in moderation, in proportion. Not that the husband just thinks about himself, and you find that once 9 months is over and then the poor wife sees again another 9 months, and her circle is just the 9 months, and then in this way she's wearing herself out totally. This isn't the case either. But you find Islamically, when this nizam is correct, the husband goes to work, he earns a living, the wife stays at home, then you don't have to pay for a nanny to look after the children that are there. The wife, she stays at home, she looks after all the children, whether it's just one child or whether it's 10 there. You find now it's getting less, but so many of our parents, grandparents, we hear that time there was 16 in a family, 8 boys, 8 girls, or 10, 15, so many in a family. And at those times, things were more difficult for them. They didn't have all the comforts and ease that they have today, but still, mashallah, they managed to maintain families. So, لِرِجَالِ عَلَيْهِنَّ دَرَجَةً, there is a system. If the male stays within his rights, his system, and the female stays within her system, there's always going to be comfort, there's always going to be peace in that form of marriage. The moment the female, she steps out of her duties and she starts taking other duties, or the husband, he leaves his duties, and so many cases wherein the husband gives up his job to look after the children, and the wife, she takes on more jobs. So total opposite, isn't it? Whereas the husband sits comfortably at home looking after the children, and he sends her out to work. Or the other cases where she demands that she has the right, she wants to go out, and then she comes home and she's stressed out, and well, it's her fault, isn't it? Islam has taken that burden of stress away from her, that you just sit nicely in the home, look after your body, look after the children, look after your health, look after the home, take it easy. I'll go there and toil and do all the striving and hardship, but you find people want to do the opposite. When you go away from the natural system, there's always going to be problems. Now this وَلِرِجَالِ عَلَيْهِنَّ دَرَجَةً is only with regards affairs of this world. Which means, with regards to hereafter, men should not think that in the hereafter they have more right, they'll have more statuses than the women. With regards to hereafter, men and women are equal. If a male can become a wali of Allah, a female can also become a wali of Allah. If a male can become a martyr, a female can also become a martyr. If he becomes a haji, she can also become a hujjah. If he goes for umrah, she can also go for umrah. With regards to hereafter, she'll have her jannat, he'll have his jannah. He'll get punished separately, she'll get punished separately. So in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a female can and have excelled over males with regards to the akhirat. So it doesn't mean that with regards to hereafter, or it means that in this world and the hereafter it will be this case, but in the hereafter also, As we find many places in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions وَالْمُؤْمِنِينَ وَالْمُؤْمِنَاتِ وَالْمُسْلِمِينَ وَالْمُسْلِمَاتِ وَالصَّادِقِينَ وَالصَّادِقَاتِ وَالْقَانِتِينَ وَالْقَانِتَاتِ. Specifically, and this was something amazing for the Arabs, because before, as I said, it's always the male, the female's name was never mentioned at all. Here in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the believing males and the believing females. So wherever the male was mentioned, the females were also mentioned. So with regards to hereafter, the females won't be lower than the male, but according to each person's own deeds, they will also excel and they will be given their rights in the hereafter according to their deeds, according to their amal. So this وَلِلرِّجَالِ عَلَيْهِنَّ دَرَجَةٌ. The male should not think that now he has more rights, he'll be the boss in the hereafter either. It means she will excel over the husband also if her amal are correct. And وَلِلرِّجَالِ عَلَيْهِنَّ دَرَجَةٌ also doesn't mean that now the husband goes home like a Pharaoh, that I am the boss. This is the other case also. The husband goes home now and says that, look, today we learned in Quran Tafseer. In the Quran, Mufti Saheb told us. And then the wives are swearing to Mufti Saheb. Then you go home and say, look, وَلِرِجَالِ عَلَيْهِنَّ دَرَجَةٌ. I am the boss, I am the Amir, so everything goes, whatever I say goes. This doesn't work either. If you adopt this form of attitude, there will always be problems in the home. Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam so beautifully mentions that there will be cases wherein a husband overpowers the wife, he is firm and he is strict against the wife, and he overpowers the wife. And there are times wherein the husband becomes a bit soft and the wives overpower the husbands. Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam mentions, I would prefer to be lenient and overpowered rather overpowering and being a tyrant. This is what Nabi Kareem mentions. He says, if you become lenient, they overpower you. And in order for you to be dominant over them, now you start becoming a tyrant. Obviously, if the wives have some form of deen, tarbiyat, etc., then the husband doesn't have to be so stern, because she herself knows that whatever the husband says goes. She knows the rights of the husband. But where she doesn't have that type, then the husband has to force his fist over her. That's what Nabi Karim mentions, that then if the husband wants to be overpowering over the wife, then he has to use the force. Otherwise, if he becomes soft, and then she overpowers him. Nabi Karim mentions, I would prefer that they overpower me than me being a tyrant over them. So which means, when the husband goes home, he shouldn't be a Pharaoh, he shouldn't be a tyrant and he shouldn't go and show and prove it, stamp it, that I am the boss. But the nature of the home should be that the wife knows that yes, he is my Amir, he is my leader, he is my ruler, he is my king, and he is the Amir of the house. So at the end of the day, his ways and his opinion are final. But in it also, it doesn't mean that the husband becomes so stubborn that that's it, I'm the Amir. So if I say it should be this way, and that's it should be that way. You've got no say in it at all. But rather it should be a case wherein the husband also seeks advice and they consult with each other, but the decision should be made by the husband. Wherein the husband should, which means the husband should also be of that caliber wherein he can show the wife what is right and what is wrong. Not wherein the husband is such that the wife does whatever wrong she wants to, and he doesn't even know that what she's doing is wrong. She goes out of the house, she dresses how she wants to, and the husband can't teach the wife and tell the wife or command the wife that what you're doing is wrong. You're meeting people who you're not supposed to be meeting, you're dressing in a manner that's incorrect. But the husband should be able to get his message over without any force. And then when there's always force and that, there's always going to be friction. He'll end up then beating her, which is contrary to Shariah also. And obviously a wife who's been beaten up, a wife who's been oppressed, she will then become arrogant. She won't want to live under that oppression. She won't want to then obey the husband. Then if the husband even nicely asks her something with great love and affection, she won't want to do it. So even if he does ask her nicely, she won't want to do it. And if he beats her and commands her, puts a gun to her head that make no tea, otherwise this, then obviously she will do it, but she won't want to do it. So this is how there should always be moderation. And this is something that's very, very important. Otherwise you'll find the affairs of the home won't be rosy. And in it also it means there are times wherein the husband has to swallow his pride also. Which means if the wife gives opinion which makes sense, accept it. Swallow your pride and accept it, because then what happens is that the husband, in order of staying steadfast on his word, he'll go contrary to it, and he'll do what was worse from the two. And you'll find there were many occasions wherein Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam sought the opinion of the Azwaj al-Mutahharat, and he did things which they said. The time of Surah Hudaybiyah, for example, when the Sahaba wanted to go for Umrah, and Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam made a treaty, and now they had to go back, they didn't know what to do. They had the mindset that we want to do the Umrah. Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam told them, now shave your heads, give the dam, come out of Ihram. But obviously because of the desire, they didn't know what to do at the time. Nabi Kareem Sallallahu didn't know what to do. So Sayyidina Safiya radiallahu ta'ala anha said to Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam that if you just shave your head, you come out of Ihram, because of the love for Nabi Kareem Sallallahu, just seeing what you are doing, they will also follow you. So Nabi Kareem Sallallahu did what she said, and they followed. So whose advice did he take? He took the advice of his wife, the same one who are lower and deficient than male in mentality, but he still took advice, because it doesn't mean that at all times they are inferior than men. There are so many times wherein their brains work when the minds and the brains of the male also fails. So it means in those occasions and those times, take their advice, and if they do give advice which is incorrect, then explain to them, okay, fair enough, that's your opinion, but look, this is how it's supposed to make sense. And then at least this way she'll also learn, but at least she knows that you have taken advice from her. At least she knows that she has some position in the home. She has some... otherwise you find, if the husband doesn't give her that position or that attention, then you'll find the rolling pin will demand her attention. So give her attention before she shows her wujud, before she shows her attention. Wallahu Azizun Hakim. Finally Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Allah is Almighty, Hakim, all-wise. Because Allah is all Hakim and all-wise, He is the one who has given men their rights, the women folk their rights, superiority over men in certain matters, and Allah has given each one various different positions, various duties. All these are because He is Hakim. He is all-wise. He knows He has created the world. He knows how the system of the world should be run. So this is how the system He has given us. If we run our lives and system of the world according to how the one who has created it has told us, naturally anything, you buy a product, you do things according to the manual, it will work. Now you say, forget this manual, I'll do with it whatever I want it to do. It's not going to work for long. You might do what you want it to do, but for a short while, and then it's out of order. Then it doesn't work, it doesn't function anymore. So you find today the world is not functioning properly, because in every aspect of life people are doing things contrary to the nizam, the manual that Allah has granted for the system of this world. And the manual has come from Allah also. The manual has to come from the manufacturer. The manual, and this is the manual which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to us, that this is the manual, follow this, and the whole system of this universe that I have created will run accordingly, and there will be peace and harmony at all times. Each person will have his rights, his or her rights. Everybody will be happy. And as Brother Umar says, everything will be hunky dory. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen.